What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Sons of Sever YouTube channel, where there's no such thing as bad weather, only bad gear. My name is Eric. Today, my brother Chris and I are going to be reviewing our very first pair of shoes from Vivobarefoot. This is the Vivobarefoot Tracker AT, and we're super excited about it. People have been asking us to review a pair of shoes from Vivo ever since the channel started, really. And we have to give a big shout out and thank you to everybody who's been using the affiliate links that we have in our descriptions. Without those links, this video would have never happened. So thank you for using them. Because of all of you out there, this video is possible. We are investing that money back into the channel so that it continues to grow, and we're super excited to bring you our likes and dislikes of this boot. Chris and I are going to go back and forth. There's timestamps down in the description if you want to jump around, but I'm going to send it over to him now so that he can get us started.
Getting into my likes of the Tracker AT, the first thing that I want to mention is the barefoot features are there. So we do have a nice wide toe box. Even though this is the same shape as all Vivobarefoots, it's definitely wider than the other one that I've tried, which is the Primus Lite 3. That was not wide enough for my feet. This thing seems to have a little bit more volume in it, and I actually don't mind the toe box. The next barefoot feature I like about it is that it does have good ground feel. They don't tell us on the website, which is really annoying, but I'm assuming the stack height is around 10-ish millimeters based on just how it feels on foot and bending and twisting it. That's going to give you great ground feel, and it's going to allow the shoe to bend and twist with your foot as well. The last thing I want to mention here is the overall minimalism. It does mention on the website that they were going to put their waterproofing membrane in here, but they decided to delete that because it was waterproof without that. Because it doesn't have that membrane, it is going to be lighter. It's going to have more volume on the inside. It's going to be thinner overall and more flexible overall. So the barefoot features of this guy are pretty good. The next like I want to mention is that waterproofing. That waterproofing is 100%. I did a lot of submersions with this as I was hiking with it, and as long as I stayed below that waterproofing gusset, the water stayed out just fine. The last like I want to mention here is the traction pattern. They absolutely crushed it with this traction pattern. I think it's a couple things. One, the shape and all the grooves that they have in here definitely do a really good job, but I also think it's the kind of rubber that they use. It's a bit of a softer rubber, so as you step onto something, that rubber is going to squish and fill in the cracks of whatever material you're walking on. It's going to grip it really nice and let you get good traction as you're moving from one spot to the next. That's definitely a highlight feature of this specific boot, is that traction pattern. With my likes of the Tracker AT out of the way, now I'm going to pass things over to Eric to talk about what he likes about the boot.
Okay, now getting into my likes of the Vivo Tracker AT. I'm going to springboard off of what Chris just left off with there, and that is the traction pattern. So this thing has been marketed as an all-terrain traction pattern, and I would say that it definitely delivers on that. So one of the hikes that I was able to get this thing on had all sorts of different terrain on it, which was a really good test for this thing. So it had just snowed, and a lot of that snow had been packed down, and then it was kind of warm the day that I went, and so that had all started to melt, and it was really, really slick out. And so I got to test this on snow and that slick melting snow as well, and in both of those conditions it gripped really well, and I never felt insecure going up or downhill on it. It did a really good job. It was also really muddy on parts of that trail, and like any boot you would expect, the spaces in between the lugs definitely got all filled up with mud and dirt, but again, I never felt like I was gonna slip. I think it does a really good job in those conditions. But I also took it into the desert. I don't have any footage of it, but I was walking around in the sand with it in Moab, as well as going over sandstone. It did a good job there. It does a good job on firm ground, and so I think it really does meet that all-terrain criteria that you would want it to. And the next thing that I'll say about it is that this has just been engineered very, very well. There's a lot of really cool things about it that make it a standout boot. I like this cutout that it has in the back right there, as well as the way that the tongue has been engineered, because it makes it really easy to slip on and it's super convenient. So the tongue has been stitched in a way that it has these folds in it, but you can see just how far you can pull that thing out, but the way that it's been stitched, it pops right back into place. And so this is definitely one of the easier boots to get on and off, and I really appreciate that about it. I also like the rubber bumper that it has. A lot of the time you only get this rubber around the toe and around the heel, but with Vivo they have made this go all the way around the boot, and I appreciate the extra protection that you get from that. I think it's also going to help with delamination, which can be a big problem with barefoot boots, where you're gluing a rubber outsole to a leather upper. Those two just don't mix very well when they're glued together, and that's why the delamination happens. But this one has rubber glued to rubber, and then this piece of leather seems like it goes pretty far underneath here. So I think they've kind of circumvented that problem. I'd have to cut it in half to really tell if that's what's going on with the construction, but with what I can feel inside and out of the boot, that's what I assume is happening with it. And so I think that that was a really clever idea from them, and I think they did a good job engineering this thing. And I really like the leather that it's made out of as well. It's their wild hide leather, which just seems pretty quality. It's not the thickest leather out there, but I think that it is going to last a long time as long as you take care of it. It's also a good looking boot. I don't think that it provides the same versatility that something like a Boulder boot does from Lems, but definitely you could kick this thing around casually and it fits super well on the trail. You definitely can't dress it up, but there is a little bit of versatility there. There are some boots in our lineup right now, like the Bahé Rediscover is one I can think of, where I'm only going to wear that thing hiking with the way that it looks, but this one can definitely fit around town at least a little bit. So there definitely is a lot of things to like about this boot. I really like how it feels on my foot as well. Those barefoot qualities are definitely there. It's very thin, it's very flexible, and with all those good things we already talked about, it's very grippy, which is super nice for a hiking boot. There's a lot to like about this. Before sending it back over to Chris to start us off with his dislikes, we did want to mention a few affiliates that we have going on with the channel right now. So if you look behind me and see this wall of boxes, we've got affiliate links for pretty much every single one of those brands. So if you see one that piques your interest, it's a shoe that maybe you've heard of before, check down in the description. We've got links to all those websites. Something that pairs really well with a pair of barefoot boots or shoes is a really good pair of toe socks that really lets you maximize your barefoot experience and split your toes out the way that they're supposed to. And Creeper's toe socks is always our go-to. We love the way that they feel, the way that they perform, and we think that they're fairly durable as well. They always win out on all the comparisons that we do of different toe socks. So go down again in the description, find that link, go to their website and check out what they've got.
Getting into my dislikes of the Tracker AT, the first thing that I want to mention is the gusseted tongue. I don't think it's high enough. This is a very common issue that I have with a lot of barefoot hiking boots. They need to push those gussets up just a little bit higher, because while this thing is perfectly waterproof, it's only perfectly waterproof up to that gusset, obviously. And I like to be able to go pretty deep in the water before I start getting stuff into my boots, because you never know how deep the water you're going to be stepping in really is until you're in there. I personally prefer gussets to go up to where the foot of the boot meets the ankle. This one does not do that, so while I can submerge it, I can't go very far. That is limiting. The other thing that I'm not a huge fan of when it comes to this boot is going to be the rubber that they use for the outsole. So I mentioned in my likes that softer rubber makes for good traction, but the issue with that softer rubber is it's also going to wear very, very quickly. I've already started to take some chunks out of this tread pattern as I've been using it early this fall, and that's an issue for me, especially for a boot that costs 250 bucks. I'm gonna want that outsole to last quite a while. So a softer rubber outsole, while it does add the traction, it does take away from longevity. And when it comes to Vivobarefoots being so thin in the first place, I feel like there's not going to be a whole lot to stop me from wearing through these things long term. Getting into my final opinion of the Vivobarefoot Tracker Leather AT. Is this thing worth it? I think if you're looking for a rugged barefoot hiking boot that has all of the barefoot features that you're looking for, zero drop, wide toe box, waterproof, minimal, and flexible, this thing checks all of those boxes. My only issue with it is it checks all those boxes at 250 bucks. That wouldn't be the biggest issue, except that I feel like you can check all those exact same boxes from $140 to $180 from some other brands. Now, I'm going to say the same thing to the Vivobarefoot fanboys that I say to the Xero Shoes fanboys, and that is that if you are a hardcore Vivobarefoot person and you're looking for this exact thing with that V on it, go ahead and fork up $250 and this thing will be perfect for what you're looking for. A big issue that I have here is that Vivo is infamous for their minimalism. And a big complaint that we get is when it comes to barefoot shoes, you're paying a lot of money for less material, right? Something that's thinner, something that theoretically should wear out faster. Well, Vivo, because of how minimal they are, is taking that to a whole nother level. You're gonna pay $250 for something that's probably gonna wear just as quickly with all of the same features as something that you could get for $140 to $180. So again, Vivo fanboys, this is for you. If this is what you're looking for, it's gonna be great, and you're gonna have the V on the back, you're gonna have it on the bottom, you're gonna be able to say, these are Vivobarefoots. But my recommendation would be save yourself some money and go with another brand that has all the same deliverables, just at a more reasonable price.
All right, let's get into the dislikes of this boot because there are a few missteps that I feel like they took. This is, according to Vivobarefoot, the definitive barefoot hiking boot, and I think that there are a few areas that they could still improve to make that true. The first one I can think of is this V right here under your foot is a different density rubber than the rest of the rubber. And I've got pretty sensitive feet, I guess, because when I'm walking on a hard surface, I can feel that difference. I can feel these lugs under my foot, and it just makes it feel like I'm walking on a rock. So I would have preferred that they take that out. If you're gonna have a different density, like a harder lug, to try and help this part of the boot from wearing out, I probably would have put those on the heel, like outside here. I guess if there's people who walk on their forefoot like you're supposed to with barefoot shoes, then that's a pretty good spot for them to be. But I think statistics would say the majority of people, whether they're in barefoot shoes or not, are going to hit their heel first. I still do, and so different density lugs right there would have been more helpful as far as wear and tear goes. But I can definitely feel this on the ball of my foot, and I don't really like that. Mine also had a bit of a quality control issue. This speed hook right here is like pinched shut almost, and so it's really difficult to get my laces into it. It kind of negates the fact that it's a speed hook. It really slows me down as I'm putting this thing on because I have to pull pretty hard to get it to snap into place. And I guess I could get some pliers and try and bend it out, but I'm afraid that that speed hook would then snap off. So I'm a little bit weary of trying to fix that myself. It's kind of a pain in the butt to have to deal with that speed hook every time I put it on, which is unfortunate because the design, like I said in my likes for putting this thing on, is really good. It's also a little bit frustrating that they don't have half sizes. That is something that they really need to add to their lineup. We knew we were going to have to size down with Vivo. We looked at their size chart, we took our measurements and did our best, and I went down a size, so I got a European 41, a US 8, like it recommended, and it fits, but it's just a little bit tight. I could definitely use like an 8.5. I think that if I went up to a Vivo size 9 in US, it would have been too big, but the 8 seems like it's just barely too small. Like I said, it fits. My toes don't touch the front or anything, but I can feel that they're kind of getting close when I'm walking around wearing this thing. So half sizes would be really, really nice. And the last dislike that I'm gonna say here is that their toe boxes need a little bit more width. When you compare them to other brands like BeLenka, for example, those shoes are definitely wider. They're wider in the toe box and they're wider in the midfoot as well. These ones, I think, tend to be a little bit more narrow than what the definitive barefoot hiking boot should be. I would definitely take a few more millimeters each side of that toe box. So that brings me to my final opinion of the Tracker AT. Do I think that Vivobarefoot did it? Is this really the definitive barefoot hiking boot? And I think it's super, super close. I really, really like this boot. Despite all of the things that I nitpicked about it, it has been a really great time using this thing. But I have been grappling with a problem in my mind ever since we've gotten them, and that is, can you find something else for less money? Because that's probably my biggest gripe with this thing, is it's $250, and I think that you can get pretty close with other brands and other boots. And I had this thought that, like, no matter what with barefoot boots, boots, you're gonna have to sacrifice somewhere. And I think with Vivobarefoot, you're sacrificing price. Now they're very renowned, their marketing is top notch. Everybody knows about Vivobarefoot when it comes to barefoot shoes, and there's a reason for that because they also perform super well. And it's up to you to decide if that $250 price tag is worth getting all the V's on your shoes so that people know. And if it's not, then we would encourage you to look elsewhere because there are really great options. Now keep in mind the sacrifice that you might have to make with other brands. Some good examples would be like with Lems, you're going to sacrifice ground feel and flexibility. They like to make their shoes a little bit thicker, but you're pretty much the same as far as like a waterproof, leather, minimalist, wide toe boxed hiking boot. You can get that from Lems for a cheaper price. You're going to have less ground feel. If you want to go with a brand like BeLenka, for example, they're one that we really like. And to be honest, the Ranger 2.0 probably comes the closest in feel and function to this one that I can think of, but you might sacrifice a little bit of quality with that one. People have told us in the comment section, hey, those failed on me, they're not actually waterproof. We haven't had any of those problems with anything we've had from BeLenka, but it's definitely out there. And so wherever it is, you're gonna find that you're gonna have to sacrifice something. And again, with Vivo, I think that it's just money, because this is a really great experience, but it isn't leagues and leagues above the other boots that we've gotten. So I don't think if you never get a pair of these in your closet that you'll be missing out if you decide to go with something else that's a little bit cheaper but still very similar. But that being said, really high praise for this boot. I've really enjoyed using it. If you want a Vivobarefoot hiker, then I think this one is really going to be tough to beat.
Folks, if you like this video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share. All those things really help the channel out. If you're interested in any of the products that we talked about in this video, there will be links to them down in the description. If we have discount codes for any of those companies, they will be featured with the links. If you want to get more content from us, there are 3 different places you can get it. The first one is Patreon, where for $1 a month, you can get exclusive behind-the-scenes content we don't post anywhere else. If you want to be most up to date with what we are working on, make sure to follow us on Instagram, where we are constantly posting unboxing videos. Go follow us on Strava if you're interested in seeing mini reviews in real time of the products we're using and what we're using them for. Strava allows you to track and post about your different activities. We track and post about our runs, trail runs, hikes, paddleboarding, and weightlifting, and we do little mini reviews on the products we're using during those activities. Go follow us there, and we will follow you back. We appreciate your view, and as always, we will catch you in the mountains.